Shalom Aleichem Rabotai. Mishnah Yomi continues with Mishnayot of Shabbat in the third parak, Mishnah Dalet. Maaseh, story time. Maaseh is a story. She'asu anshe Tveria. The men of Tveria have used silon shel tznonin. They put a pipe of cold water, letoich ama shel chamin, inside of a channel of hot water. Now Tveria has the famous hot springs of Tveria, where there's hot water coming from underground. So they said, wow, this is great. There's a heat source. Let's put a pipe of regular cold drinking water through this hot water and warm it up. Amru lehen chachamim. So the sages there said, what's the din of this water? Im b'Shabbat, if you're drinking this water on Shabbat, kechamin shuchma b'Shabbat, has the same din of water that was warmed up on Shabbat. Asurin b'rachitza v'shtiya. You can't bathe in it and you can't drink it either. B'Yom Tov, if the water was used on Yom Tov, kechamin shuchma b'Yom Tov. It's like warming up water on Yom Tov. Now we know if you have an existing fire already on Yom Tov, can't light a new fire, if you have an existing fire, you could warm up water, but the din here is asurin b'rachitza, you can't bathe with it, matarin b'shtiya, but you could drink it. Now by bathing here, they mean rachitza kol gufo. They mean you couldn't take a bath in this water if it was used on Yom Tov, but you could actually use it to wash your face, your legs, your feet, your hands, as is commonly done, and of course you could drink it. It's like warming things up on Yom Tov, and of course we can, as we're going to see, cook and warm up water on Yom Tov, just not Shabbat. The Bartanura here adds, Chalacha kechachamim, Chalacha is like the sages, V'hazar b'manchi Tveria, Shavr et Silon, and the men of Tveria, they removed this pipe from the Chamei Tverius. What does it mean, Chalacha kechachamim? We recall yesterday, there's an opinion of Rabbi Yossi that to warm something up on Shabbat in something that itself was heated by the sun, by sunlight, would be mutter, according to Rabbi Yossi, only not according to the sages. It's called toldat chama or toldat shemesh in Ivrit. So something heated by the fire, Rabbi Yossi would allow, but the sages would not. So it sounds like these hot springs of Tveria are considered to be heated up by the sun, which is interesting. The sun does warm the earth, and they are from underground. However, there are Mefarshim that say that the hot springs were also considered heated up by fire because they go so deep in the earth that they pass by Pitcho Shel Gehenim. They pass near the opening of Lo Aleinu Gehenim, where there's fire. So maybe they're considered heated up by fire. So I'm not sure that what the Metzias is. I've never been down there, Lo Aleinu, but it's interesting to note that Bartanura brings that as the reasoning they dismantled the pipe. Anyway, Mishnah Dalet continues, Muliar Hagaruf. A muliar is a miliarium, is apparently the translation, and it's a kli that is used for heating up water. It's kind of a kettle, a large metal kettle, and it had hot coals in a receptacle on the side of the kettle. And if it's garuf, meaning you've shoveled out or swept out the coals, which we call from Mishnah Aleph in this parak about the sweeping out the coals from the oven, shotin emem b'Shabbat. So you could heat it up erev Shabbat, and as long as you remove the heat source, remove the coals, it would be mutter to drink the hot water on Shabbat that's being kept hot in this metal muliar. Antichi, and antichi is a different kind of kettle, or hot water urn, and it had the coals underneath. It had two bottoms, and the water was on top in one receptacle, and the fire and the coals underneath in another receptacle. Afal pisha garufa, even if you swept out the coals, ein shotin v'mena, you can't drink from it on Shabbat. Bartner says it gets so hot under the antichi that it's considered as heating up the water on Shabbat itself, not merely keeping it insulated, so you can't drink from it on Shabbat. On to Mishnah Hey, Hamecham. And a mecham is a kettle that you would warm up water on the fire with. Shepinahu, that you took it off of the fire, so now it's sitting on the counter. Lo yitin l'techetzonin, you can't put cold water into the hot water in the kettle, so the cold water will get warm. Volnotin hu l'toicho, but you can. Volnotin hu l'toicho, you can put water in there, or l'tochakos, or in a cup, k'dei lahavshiran, to make it lukewarm. So the distinction here is if you put a little bit of cold water into the hot water in the kettle, you're cooking up that little bit of cold water. But if you dump a bucket of cold water into that kettle, then it's not going to get cooked. It has enough koach of coldness in the cold water to cool down the hot water. Or if you poured it into another kli, a kli sheni, then you could put in as much or as little cold water as you like, because it's no longer in the kli rishon, the kettle that was on the fire, it's in a kli sheni. The Mishnah continues, ha'ilpos is a large pan, v'kadeira, a pot, sheheviran merotchin. So they took them off the fire, and they're boiling hot still. Lo yiten l'toichot tvolin. You can't put spices into these foods. They're boiling hot. They're going to come to cook the spices. It's a kli rishon. It's off the fire, but it's still kli rishon, still boiling hot. So it'd cook the spices. Aval no tenhu l'toicha kara, but you can put it onto a serving plate, or the toicha tamchui, or a platter, a serving platter, and then you could add spices in the next vessel. So that's going to be, again, a kli sheni. It was never on the fire like the kli rishon was. Rabbi Yehuda omer l'kolu noitin. You could put anything you want. Chutz medavar sheish bo chametz v'tzir, except something that has vinegar or brine. So vinegar or brine accelerate cooking, and they will make the spices that you put in cook much faster and more easily. So Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is, other than that, you could add spices even to a kli rishon. Halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda, where you can't put spices into the hot kli rishon, but the Bar Nura adds that salt, that melach, salt doesn't actually cook, so it technically could be added.